Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Tips and Tricks on How to Boost Your Business. I'm Anna Anastase, Events and Marketing Coordinator, and I will be your host for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Today, we'll discuss a very interesting topic for any kind of business, either experienced ones, either the beginning of their journey. This topic will be discussed together with our guest today, Colin Lovering, Vice Chairman of BRCC, co-founder and Executive Director for Lovering and Partners, Senior Business Advisor at COS, and amazing moderator. Colin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for that amazing introduction, Anna. I think I'll hire you as my agent after that. Thank you.
I take that. Thank you so much, Colin, for being here today. Before we start, I just wanted to let everyone know that they can feel free to ask questions either in the chat box, either in the Q&A box. We have two places for that. And if you are active enough, you'll have a little surprise from Colin at the end of this webinar. Colin, thank you for being here again. I know you, most of our members know you, but there might be people who actually don't know about yourself. So if you could tell us about you and about your career so far, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anna. Well, and welcome to everybody, to our members, but also our non-members coming on. And I hope today gives you a good eye-opener to just a flavour of what the BRCC can deliver. Now, obviously, with my grey hair, I could go on forever about my career, but to cut it to a sort of fine point, Anna, I've been in frontline sales most of my career, had a great deal of success, and I'm saying that because we're going to get on to talking about how I can share some of that wisdom and knowledge that I learned along the way. But I won 2 European awards for sales excellence in my career, and from that I was shipped off to France. I lived in France for 3 years, where I looked after the European sales operation for a major American corporation. That went well, so they shipped me off again to the USA. So I lived over in the US for another 3 years. I lived in a little bit in downtown Manhattan and a little bit in Connecticut and everywhere else. And it gave me an opportunity to see the world, but also train and teach and coach literally hundreds of professionals and sales professionals and managers and everybody literally across the world, which accumulated in all the knowledge that I got myself. And then 13 years ago, believe it or not, I moved to Romania. I was doing a project with a couple of companies, and like most expats, they came and fell in love with the country, and I'm still in love with the country, and I'm still here 13 years later as a business performance consultant. So I basically just go in and help companies to perform better. So there you go. There's a shortened version of all of those years.
Thank you, Colin, very much. I know you've got great experience in sales and advisory. And I've heard from a trustworthy source that you've become a writer. And you've just written your first book. Is that correct?
It is correct. And you probably noticed the very unsubtle book placement or product placement, as they call it in the movies. Yes, I did, Anna. And it was something I've been sort of thinking about doing for a long time. As I mentioned before, I've been lucky enough to travel a lot of places internationally and see the sales world in China, in South Africa, in North America. And what I found was it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. There's the cultural differences, but it's pretty much the same. And I thought, why not put all these things together? As a continuous learner myself, I'm always looking in bookshops to see how I can improve my knowledge, not just in sales, but just being able to communicate better, to build better relationships, etc. And I just found that there was many books, but they were about this thick, and like 80% of it was this sort of theoretical science. And I couldn't find a book really that sort of just did the basics. So that's really what I wanted to do, is to share all of my wisdom, if I can call it that, with an audience. Just make it very simple. And that's really the format of the book. It's basically taking 30 sales scenarios And really, it's called A Day in the Life of Exceptional Sales Professionals. So all it's doing is, if anybody's reading it, it's kind of giving you a mirror image of what an exceptional sales professional looks like. And my advice to people is, if you follow it, you will hopefully be more successful immediately. It's not a long-term learning. You can have immediate success with it. So that was really the reason for it, apart from, I will be very honest, the thought of being able to write author alongside my LinkedIn profile was a big incentive as well. So I'm kind of a bit of self-pride coming out as well.
I think during this pandemic, reading became one of our main activities. Of course, for you also writing. But yes, indeed, I think everyone started to read more. And I wanted to ask you, actually, who would you advise to read this book? Is it only professionals, or is it actually everyone who just want to learn more about sales?
Yeah, I call it sales professional because basically we're all salespeople, Anna. You're a salesperson, the team's a salesperson. For those of watching with children, they'll know about what the hardest negotiation is in this world, is negotiating with your kids and stuff. So we're always trying to either sell ourselves, promote ourselves into a job, or persuade our friends to come down the pub with us, whatever we're doing. So it's really a general thing about improving everybody's sort of confidence. And it was quite interesting. As an honorary Romanian now, I can sort of talk freely about these things, but I realized there was a high percentage of introverts in Romania as well. So that classic sales thing that you see these guys on the Facebook saying, "Yeah, I'm the greatest salesperson in California. I'll boo, boo, boo." That just puts everybody off. So I just wanted to have something that was fairly sort of humble, but really realistic. So in answer to your question, it doesn't matter what profession you're in. If you're a startup, Romania is becoming famous for the genius startups out there. And there's this horrible statistic that 99% of startups fail in the first 12 months. Well, it's not because the product or what they're doing or the app is no good. It's just their ability to take that brilliant product or brilliant idea and put it out into the real world. So that's really another area. So whether you're a startup, or if we've got the marketing director or the sales director of Vodafone watching, it doesn't really matter. The concept remains the same, basically. So I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And actually, that was my next questions. How are sales going on this book? And are you planning to write another one?
Yeah, two very nice questions, and I'm happy to answer both of them actually, because I've been surprised. I haven't spent too much. I didn't write the book to make money. So anybody out there think they're going to make a lot of money writing a book, I hate to tell you this, but unless it's a Harry Potter, you make a little bit. You'll make a little bit. But the main thing for me was obviously to promote my business. We're talking about why to join the BRCC. It's to promote your business, and if it helps 5%. All well and good, you get your money back. It's a good investment. If it helps 50%, that's amazing. So that's really sort of the way that I was looking at it. And sales, surprisingly, it's on Amazon Global, so it's available anywhere in the world, but also on Barnes and Noble in the USA, and that's where most of the sales are actually being generated. I sold 600 books in the first week of being on the USA platform, but I do have an opportunity to brag here a little bit, Anna, because I'm very proud that there's a certain. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur supporter, so it's quite apt that there's a major bookshop in Tottenham Court Road in London that wanted to make this book their book of the week because they were selling it so well. And I got the statistics through my publisher, and everybody's heard of Simon Sinek. Well, I'm proud to say, only 1 week, I'm sure it won't happen for long, but I outsold Simon Sinek in this bookshop in London. So that was an amazing, quite kind of surreal thing for me. So I think because I'm holding it up there, it's not a big thick book. If I show it there, the camera, yeah, it's not a big thick book. It's very simple reading. You don't have to read it cover to cover. I think that's been the attraction. And so in answer to question 1, yes, sales are going well. In answer to question 2, yes, I am. I'm in the middle of the second book, which I'll hold this up so you can get the idea why I'm calling it this. It's going to be called The Day in the Life of Exceptional Sales Managers, because I've had a lot of sales leaders contacting me and saying, hey, Colin, running a sales team, because of the nature of sales people, they tend to be a very diverse bunch. Managing a sales team and setting strategies and medium long-term thoughts and everything else is so I'm probably 40% of my way through my second book, and then the third book I don't know yet, but let's see.
That sounds very good for now. So congrats on these initiatives. We hope to see the second book as early as possible, maybe this year if possible.
It will be this year. Yeah, definitely this year.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I'm actually contracted to do the book before the end of the year anyway. So
that means I still have time to read the first one. Oops.
You do indeed. Is that a hint for me to send you a free copy of the book?
Probably.
Okay.
But going further to our sales discussion, because that was the aim of this webinar, I wanted to ask you, how do you think that the role of sales has changed through the pandemic? Because I'm sure there has been so many talks about digitalization and so on that, of course, its role has been quietly modified.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing, I spend a lot of my time working with companies, as I mentioned before, helping them to perform better. And I go in and I take a look at their structure, their their people, their objectives, their style, and everything else. And what I find is a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about sales, a lot of people have become subservient to technology and digitalization, which is an amazing thing, by the way. I'm not that old. I'm not this old-fashioned guy who says we should go back to the old days. But I am a little bit. There is a little bit of that we've lost through it. I was with somebody last week, and they just come back off their holiday. And I said they went to, I think half of Romania is in Hurghada in Egypt at the moment, because everybody's going there.
I think everyone is in Egypt. Yeah, you're right.
They came back and said, it was okay, but I didn't really relax because of emails. And I was saying to them, when I was their age, sort of 25, 26 in my early sales career, there was no smartphones. Yes, I am that old. There was no smartphones or laptops per se. A laptop was kind of the size of a small car. So when you went on holiday, you just said goodbye to everybody and off you went, and you had 2 weeks. If there was an emergency, you left the hotel number, but people got on with it. Your colleagues covered for you, and you came back refreshed and you got on with things. So in terms of how things are changing through without COVID, I think what COVID has taught us is that relationships are so powerful, and those watching who've got family either living in Timisoara or like me living in the UK, having Zoom calls and but those conversations are much more intimate. And when we see people at events in a business setting before COVID, it was like, I call it business lying. We used to say, hey, I'll use you as an example, Anna. They'll say, hey, Anna, how are you? You're looking well. I was thinking about you the other day. We must do dinner sometime. We say all of these things, but it's so synthetic. It doesn't really mean it. Fast forward to now, when we see people, we don't just say, how are you? We say, how are your family? How are you keeping? And that, so this sort of empathy and emotional intelligence, which is probably the number 1 skill that is coming out of COVID, has really changed the way. You asked a question about how we sell, but how we communicate is the same thing. So I grew up with relationship building was the prime part of my selling skills, and it is in the book. I have this definition that sales is not trying to persuade somebody to buy your product or service. It's making it difficult for them not to. And the way you do that is just building solid relationships. And I think what COVID has taught us is a little bit of that old-fashioned, a sprinkling of old-fashioned styles and communication is actually a good thing. So in answer to your question, I think COVID has taught us to show more empathy and sincerity and authenticity. We can't get away with it anymore. We really do have to be authentic and keep relationships strong. Otherwise, people won't want to do business with us, and our friendships will suffer as well. I think we've all had a few friends fall off the edge of the cliff because they weren't really friends. They were just kind of acquaintances. there wasn't that meaning. So I think we've learned a lot from it, but it has changed. It certainly has changed.
Yes, it totally has changed. And I imagine that during this pandemic, and not only, there are a lot of companies, entrepreneurs, professionals who come to you and ask you how to grow my sales. And what
Yeah.
actually are you answering to them? Or better said, what are the main challenges they face when asking you these questions?
Okay. Well, I think the first thing, Anna, is there's a lot of uncertainty out there. People are kind of a little bit like, we're waiting for something to happen instead of proactively creating that sort of feeling, if you like. So my message to people who are worried about their self, that we talk about COVID winners and COVID losers. COVID winners, if you're on the online sales business and you build, like the MAGs of this world, life is sweet because that's a fast growing industry. If you're the owner of a small hotel, you're suffering right now. But I think what we need to do is to have that optimism, and always, I always say to people, look 12 months ahead. Pretend it's now April 2022. We hope, I know we said this last year, we hope that things are much better. Things are getting back to normal. There will be a different way of working. People won't be working full time, etc. But people will still need, the consumers will still be out there. So I think it's really sort of if you're a salesperson or a business person, is to keep your customers optimistic and keep them looking forward in the same way that you are. Otherwise, I said, people will just stop and do nothing. And I think with the Zoom calls, when we're doing a webinar, and I'm sure people are like, oh my God, another webinar. It is challenging. And I don't care what anybody says, it doesn't replace that face-to-face. So I think now, as things are starting to get a bit better, as long as we're more sensible and the weather is better, we can sit outside. So I would even say to people, if somebody says, hey, yeah, okay, I can meet you next week, let's do a Zoom call, you might have to have the courage to say, let's wait a couple more weeks until we can see each other face to face on a terrace with a cup of coffee, and let's do that. So I think, in answer to your question is keep going, keep that optimism going, and really sort of have that sort of be a coach to your customers as well. Feed them information. I'm working with predominantly with the amazing people at COS, and one of the things I'm saying to the sales team there is always be looking for research and information that you can share with your customers to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way through this. So don't just be a salesperson, be a coach as well. I think I answered it.
Yeah, great answer. And I have many more others, but I see that we already have a question in the Q&A box. So maybe we could answer this one.
Yeah.
What is the difference between following up and bothering someone too much? When does no means no?
Wow.
That's a really good one. That's a really good one.
I'm smiling because I was coaching somebody on this last week. I'll tell you what my technique is. Now, I assume the question was there about trying to get in touch with somebody, a prospect or something like that. I'll go back a little bit, if I may. The first thing we need to do is to use what we call assumptive language, because we know if you ask too many questions, it makes life difficult. So what the customer's really looking for you to be is not to say, hey, Anna, I'd like to come and see you next week. Let me know when will be good for you, because Anna, you don't know, Colin Lovering, who I don't know him, and now he wants me to be my own secretary, setting a meeting for him. So what normally happens is that you kind of ignore that email and you go on to all your other emails of the day, and Colin just slips away into oblivion. And that's why a lot of us, when we send an email, we have this expectation that people will read it and reply to it, but the reality is, based on that scenario I just gave you, it just doesn't happen. So I use this assumptive language. So I say, I don't say, Anna, if it's possible, maybe could we, if it's okay, this sort of subservient talk. I say, Anna, I want to come see you next week. I've got something to show you, which I think is going to make a fundamental difference to your productivity. I'd like to come and see you at, may I suggest 10 a.m. on Tuesday? If that's not convenient, let me know when would be. So what I'm doing there is kind of make this assumptive language. I'm talking about, I'm already getting to when we're going to meet, not if we're going to meet. So use that. That's in the book, by the way. But on the other, for the person, I don't know if it's a gentleman or lady, but for the question about the follow-up. So let's say you send an email to somebody, or you phone. Let's start with a phone. So somebody calls me. I don't recognize the number. I'm busy. I don't answer it. And then 2 hours later, the same number calls me. So the first one, I'm curious. I wonder who that was. Second one, I'll be, oh, somebody's keen. And then 2 hours later, they call me again. And we're starting to get into stalker territory there. So be very careful with that. I think sometimes a message to tell somebody. So say, hey, dear Anna, it's Colin from the BRCC. I wanted to give you a call, if I may. I'll try you this afternoon around 3 p.m. So if you do that, even if you don't really want to speak to me, when that 3 p.m. and do it at 3 p.m., not 5 minutes, do it at 3 p.m. When that 3 p.m. call comes through, you know exactly who it is. And statistically, you're more likely to pick up that phone rather than if I hadn't sent that pre-message. And for the answering a question about follow-up, I often, as based on what I said, so I often will send an email and I don't get that response. And then what I do, I leave it for a period of 1 week. And this is what I do. So if I've written to you, Anna, trying to sell new brochures for the BRCC, and you've ignored me, how dare you, you've ignored me. What I will do is I will send you an email. I will forward the email I sent you last week. I say, dear Anna, I just wanted to make sure that you got my email okay last week. Hope to talk to you soon. And what that does is kind of trigger something in your head about you being unprofessional, because in other words, what I've said to you is, Anna, you're a bit unprofessional. I sent you a bloody email and you didn't reply to me. What sort of a professional are you? But I'm not saying that, of course, but there is something that ingrains. And all of these
like a guiltness.
Yeah, there's a little bit of guilt. So what you get from that, everybody, is, and I actually like rejection. I talk about rejection in the book as well. I actually like being rejected, because if you can turn that around, especially if somebody cancels a meeting at the last minute, all of us will say, oh my God, it's terrible, it's the end of the world. I sit there smiling because I realize that there will be a guilt, your word, Anna, there will be a guilt about that. And so when I do rearrange that meeting, they're apologizing, not all of the time, of course, but they're sorry, I'm sorry about last week. And statistically, they're more likely to do business with you because they've let you down. So there's kind of this reciprocal thing comes up. So when people say no or they let you down, as long as you haven't lost the connection there, it's sometimes quite a good thing. So with the follow-up, I do that, and I would say 3 times out of 5 you will then get a response saying, yes, Colin, I'm sorry, I've been really busy lately, yes, we can meet. So it does turn into much more of a positive. But if they don't, I might try it one more time, and then I would leave it. I would find another way, or I'd go onto LinkedIn and connect with them on there, and then, or maybe on the third occasion, maybe send a message from LinkedIn and say, hey, I sent you an email, Anna, sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to talk to you about this. And then if that doesn't work, you need to look at maybe somebody else,
other prospects
connecting for you, etc. Try the side door in front instead of the front door.
We have another question from Robert Rowe. As fundraising for an NGO is sales, what tips would you have to persuade people to donate in a time when people are feeling poorer or uncertain about their own financial future?
So let me just read. So fundraise for an NGO. Okay. Well, NGOs have a tough job, and it's a little bit like when we're doing an event. If we ask somebody to sponsor our event, the immediate thought is that I give money, I'm not sure what I get in return. But then we say about partnering the event, then the return on the investment is a little bit more. So I think the key is to, with the NGO, is really to start low and build up. In sales, we tend to say, look, this is our top price, and then we negotiate down. So we tend to be top down. For an NGO, I would say have that patience. Now, a lot of NGOs will have an NGO boss who's saying, look, we need funds, and maybe a little bit more impatient. And what you've got to do is educate them as well, I guess, is to be a little bit patient and take things slowly, but do something at a level personally. And I'm a great believer in this, Anna, that it's much more difficult. So let's say, Anna, you're working for an NGO, or you're working for, I mentioned COS before, and I say to the guys there, if they're trying to sell something to a customer, it's easy for that customer to say no to COS, because there's this assumption that COS is doing lots of business, which it is, but there's that correct assumption. Same with an NGO. When an NGO goes to somebody and says, look, I need your money, so to speak, in a more subtle way than that, it's easy to reject that, because they say, yeah, they're okay, they're a good NGO, they look after caring for homeless people, I'm sure they'll get money from everywhere else. But if that individual is asking in a personal way, and rather than we would like you to support us, is I have this passion, I have this story. The reason why I joined this NGO is because I have this personal story. I would be delighted if you would be part of this journey with us. It's much harder for me to reject you, Anna, than it is the BRCC. Let's say you were trying to get me to be as a member. Yeah, no, I'll think about it. Yeah, send me an email, I'll have a look at it, and I'll come back to you. I don't really have a conscience about it. But if it's coming from you personally, and you tell me, Colin, personally, I read your book, I love your book, or you've gone on a LinkedIn article that I've written, and you've written something, saying, I really like this article. By the way, that is a great way for the NGOs to connect with people. Look at them on LinkedIn. Look, if they've written an article, it means that they have a little bit of an ego, like I do. And if you refer to that, say, I'd like to talk to you, I want to talk about our NGO, but I wanted to ask you about that comment you put on your article in Business Review last week. So use that way of sort of connecting with them, but put your personal hat on, as I said, put your Anna hat on, and less than the BRCC hat, and you will find that you'll get people to engage a little bit more. And for the was it a gentleman with the NGO? Yep. Yeah, that people will make assumptions. Yeah, I work for an NGO that deals with autistic children. People say, yeah, I know what that is, but they don't really understand what the NGO actually does and the people, what they do. And that's the bit that you can get. If you can get to that, then you can make a way. But putting the personal cap on as much as you possibly can. Stop using the word we, use the word I, and you will find people are more listening. I hope that helps. But please, anybody answering questions, we're gonna give my details out. If anybody has a question to ask, please, I'm not going to go away after this 1 hour. I'm here to help in any way or give advice in any way possible. So, okay.
Yes, Colin, thank you so much. And I also had a question, because we have already covered the NGO, but what about small companies or startup at their beginning, let's say? How could they, let's say, make more visibility on the market and get some leads, get some prospects, maybe even some introductions to certain companies who could use their services?
Yeah, it's a great question, Anna. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Romania is becoming famous for its startups, but also that horrible statistic that I mentioned, it is true. A lot of the startups I talk to is they have amazing product, they have amazing app or whatever it is, but it's just sort of going to market. I'll answer that question. I'll answer kind of another question about how you grow your business anyway. So if you're a startup or a medium-sized company, or you're a 3-year experienced salesperson, or you've been in the process 20 years, we tend to be very reactive. So we tend to focus when we have something to sell or something to promote on the immediate return. And we become very, very reactive. So what I say to people, and the answer to this question with the startups is actually meet with people who have no interest in your product to buy your product or service, but what we call, it's a bit of a cliche, kind of influencer type people, and go to them 50% of your time with them, 50% of your time trying to sell to customers or get investors and that type of thing. And what you will find, and what I found as a young man trying to be successful, I got more out of visiting that first 50%. And even when I came to Romania, I came here, I was working in a corporation, I had a beautiful car, nice salary, and suddenly I was going to go it alone. And it's a scary thought, trust me. And every penny that you spend, every contract that you get, the first thing is, do I cover the rent? Does it cover the car? Does it cover my food? You really get back to basics on it. But what I found was going to people and simply asking for help. And this is something in Britain, it's much easier. In Britain, we're actually quite happy to be wrong. We're quite happy to be not that great. And reveal and expose our fragile mess, our vulnerability, our gaps in our skill set. In Romania, I found that people are a little bit more, let's say, guarded and protective of not being correct all of the time. And I say this very politely, but I think people will agree with this. So asking for help can be more of a challenge, but it's incredible. And I know many young Romanian entrepreneurs have actually done this and just gone to people and say, hey, I need your help. I'm trying to grow my business. I would value your advice. I'd value your opinion. And trust me, Anna, if anybody walked in this room now in the middle of this webinar and said, Colin, I need your help, I'd be there. As soon as this is finished, I'd be there. Very few people will say no to somebody asking for advice. So I think, that's that. I remember a guy called Peter de Ruyter. Peter's a dear man with PwC, and he's now retired, I think, a Dutch gentleman. And he was one of the people I went to. And I just said, Peter, I'm setting up my own consultancy, business performance consultancy. I need your help. And I told him more. And before I finished the meeting, he had called two people and said, you need to speak to this guy. When are you free? He arranged the meetings for me. So that's my immediate answer to the question. I could go on in other areas, but that would be my immediate answer: is reach out to people who can help you along the way and who can refer you and point you in the right direction. But have the courage to say, look, I don't quite know what I should be doing here. I need your help. Don't be overconfident with it, because that's where the failure starts, because people see overconfidence and they think, you don't need my help, I'll go and help somebody else. So be humble and reach out, I think.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And there are a lot of companies who also come to us to BRCC and ask for referrals or just for this, let's say, attached visibility that they get with us. Yeah, and that was my next question, actually. Why is it so important to belong to a business community or to a chamber of commerce? Not necessarily us, but in general.
Yeah, it's another good. You put some good questions here. Well, what I would say with something like the BRCC, it's like everything in life. You only get out what you put in. I did a training with World Class a few years ago, and the gentleman who was the previous CEO told me He said, Colin, do you realize that 26% of world-class members never set foot in a world-class gym? They just had this feel-good factor of being a member of world-class, but never use it. And I think the same to apply for associations. The BRCC has some amazing platform and resources to really sort of connect with those influencers I talked about as well. So when people go on the BRCC website and look at the members list, they're in reactive mode. So they're looking at who are the people that I can do business with. If it's less than 10%, I'm not sure whether I should join. Well, you've got to stop doing that, because it's not about those ones you could potentially do immediate business with. The rest of them are probably going to bring you more, maybe 3 times as much business through their influences and through their connections, etc. So, and be proud of it. I know if there's a lot of members watching here, if you don't have member of the BRCC in your signature, unless it's a corporate guideline thing, if you're an SME, stick it on there, because it immediately gives you credibility. Immediately gives you credibility that you're part of a professional association. So I think the main thing, Anna, is realizing the return on the investment of membership of the BRCC, regardless of what industry you're in. If you tap into the resources and people like yourself and Madalena and Stefan, who can do that connecting, and the board of directors, including myself, I can guarantee you, if you're owner of a small hotel, you're a startup, you own a printing company, it doesn't matter what it is, your return on an investment should be, if you do it right, should be less than 2, maximum 3 months, and you get your money back, and then you're in profit. So it's an investment, not a cost. And it's the same going back to our friend with the NGO, with the sponsorship or whatever. And people just see it as a cost or a charitable thing to do, rather than, hey, this could actually be quite pivotal to my business. And you're looking at somebody. I've been in business all of my life. I still use my membership of the BRCC as probably one of the major forefronts of what I do. If I'm talking to an investor looking at investing in Romania, the fact that I'm vice chairman of the British Romanian Chamber of Commerce puts me at the front of the line straight away. And it's the same way with all of our members. That signature, that reference to it, just gives you credit. And that applies to, we're not just going to pitch on the BRCC. That applies to other business associations, whether it's the ABSL or ACCA or these other associations. It just gives you that credibility.
Thank you, Colin. We already have 2 other questions in the Q&A box.
Okay.
From Michael Lidval. Hi, Colin. I'm a Brit getting a business English language tutoring business running online. I live in Sibiu and I'm working on getting my name and offer out here and nationwide. I'm unsure of the best way to approach individuals and companies needing to improve their employees' English skills and foreign clients and colleagues, etc. What tips can you suggest on how I can effectively get the word out? Okay.
All right. Well, hi, Michael. I don't think we know each other, but you're based in Sibiu. Okay, in wonderful Sibiu, my favorite city. I think I'm going to answer Michael's question, but I'm going to try and answer it in a general way as well. It's kind of a similar theme that I'm saying here. That sometimes we focus too much on what we do rather than what it delivers. And it's a bit like I always say about the analogy of a nice restaurant. You go into a nice restaurant, you don't have to go in the kitchen and watch them cooking the steak to see if they do it properly, or check whether the linen is clean or the glasses are clean. That's your expectation. But what you don't expect is that experience that you get that makes you want to go back to that restaurant and recommend it to others. And I think for Michael, with online learning, is I talk about it in the book. Do you know, I think the phrase of 2020 for me was "you're on mute." 2021 it's in the book. But I really talk about this, the way that we we pitch for doing business. We do it in this traditional way. So, yeah, my name's Michael Lidval. I think that's correct pronunciation. Yeah, I'm a teacher, online teacher. That's kind of the product. I do this, I do this, I do this. This is the features, and the benefits is that people will speak English better or speak Romanian better, whatever. That's the benefit. Do you want to sign up? Do you want to buy my product? And that's the way that most people in most industries sell their products or services. What I say is sell backwards, sell backwards. And then what I mean by that is start at the other end. And there's another word I use is the advantage. So what is the true? I'm not going to be able to answer the question for Michael's thing because it's too quick for me to think about it. But I'm thinking of something. One of the advantages of me improving my English skills could be promotion, could be my career path. So, or let's say, or a new position or something, or improve my success in whatever I'm doing. I'm being a little bit vague with it. So for Michael, when somebody says to Michael, "What do you do?" If he says, I'm a teacher, I do this, I do this, I do this. It's all very nice, but people will make an assumption whether I want to do business with you or not. Yeah, it's like saying I'm a lawyer. Oh, very nice. Yeah, okay. See you later, and off they go. But if Michael, for instance, replies, I actually accelerate, what do you do, Michael? I actually help people to accelerate their careers, for instance. Then that's the advantage. Then the response would be, oh, tell me more about that. Then what Michael would do then is work his way backwards by talking about the benefits, the features, the product, and selling backwards that way, but starting with the advantage, because people will assume the need for something. And Michael, being an expat, has probably got phone calls from, they think expats have got loads of money, so you get financial advisors calling you from Dubai. So, Colin, blah, 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 blah. And you after about 3 minutes, I say, look, I'm really busy, or I make some excuse, call me back. And I never want to speak to them ever again. I may have missed an opportunity to make 5% more on my pension scheme, but I lost that opportunity because this person was pitching something to me. Whereas if somebody said to me, start off with an advantage, say, Colin, how would you like to actually have 8,000 euros per year extra in your bank account? I'd be like, well, that would be good, and then they'd work back to it. So I think hopefully that sort of helps Michael a little bit, but it's a good excuse to say to him to give me a call so I can speak to him. Assuming Lidval is an English name, I'm not sure, it doesn't matter, but feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Colin. Just because we have 15 minutes more, and because you mentioned actually the books, and the title of our webinars is Tips and Tricks, I would like you to choose 2 or 3 tips and tricks from your book that can be useful for our viewers.
Wow. Okay. I've exhausted my mind, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to open the book here. Yeah. Well. Here's one. Here's one. In fact, I just seen another note from Michael. He kind of answered the question actually with his with his message. So well done, Michael. You're on the way there, my friend. But one of the things that I find is that when we're trying to sell something, so let's say it's a phone, and somebody says to me, I want to sell you this phone. I say, how much is it? And he says it's 100 euros, or she says it's 100 euros. And then somebody else comes to me and says, Colin, I've got a phone. My phone is 90 euros. A lot of the time we tend to make this assumption, unless there's nothing obvious, that we will buy that cheaper product. And what I talk about in a book is this cost versus price. So most of the time we price something, and people make a decision based on the price versus other people's prices. I'll give you an example, Anna. I'm using, hopefully you can see me nice and clearly now because I bought myself a nice new web camera. But the story is not as nice as that, because about 6 months ago, I went into, I won't name the store, and I found somebody who I thought was knowledgeable. And I said, look, I need a better camera for my laptop. And he said, well, this one's a good one. I think it was a Logitech one. This one's a good one. How much is it? It's 180 lei. I thought, okay. I wasn't sure what my budget was. I said, okay. So I bought it. And then, sorry, it was 150 lei. It was 150 lei. And then, so I bought it. And then I put it on the system. And I thought, I don't look any better than I did with the camera off the laptop. So I persevered, and then a little bit later, a few weeks later, I went into another store and I told this guy that the issue. I could tell he was a bit more knowledgeable. I found out a little bit more about him, and he said he sold you that one. Oh no, you don't need that one. The one you need is this one, which is let's say 350 lei, which is the one I'm using right now. So when you look at the price versus the cost. I paid 150 lei, then I paid 350 lei. So I paid this camera we're looking at cost me 500 lei. And I hope I'm getting the point across here. Sometimes, we buy a pair of shoes because they're a cheaper price, or a jacket, but we end up paying more for it over a 12-month period. Now, it depends on what product you're selling. So if it's something that's let's say perishable, not a vegetable, but a pair of shoes or something that's likely to wear, this becomes even more profound. But always look at, I work with COS, they do amazing offices. And one of the things I always say to people when I'm promoting COS is, anybody can build an office that looks nice, but what it looks like in 2 or 3 years' time is the big factor. So I try to dissuade somebody by going with somebody else because it's cheaper, because I know, as a consultant, I know they're going to pay more for it in the long run, like dear old Colin did with his web camera. So price versus cost. So when somebody talks about a price, go into your consultancy mode and say, look, can I just take 5 minutes to explain what this price really means to you over the next 12 months? And if you can do that, then people sit back and say, actually, yeah, I don't want to get 12 months down the road and regret not doing business with you. Yes, I will pay the extra 20%, because in the long term, it's actually going to be cheaper doing business with you. So I think that's probably the best tip I can give. How are we doing for time? Do you need another one, or have you got another question?
We have 10 minutes more, so if there is anyone willing to ask another question, feel free. Okay. And meanwhile, I would like to let people know that people who ask questions actually give a short surprise from Colin, and I will leave Colin let you know about what is it about. Okay. In a minute, but before that, so that would be my final questions before anyone else. What one piece of advice would you give to any company looking to boost their business in the upcoming periods? So let's say in the first 6 months from now. Okay, well, number one would be get that book. No, seriously, I mean that. Seriously, I mean that, because it will really raise the level of your success. It will, instead of getting one person out of 10 calls to say yes to a meeting, you will get 3 or 4 people, etc. So I'm saying it with a smile, but yeah, I would definitely do that. And people like Robert and Michael and other things will get a free. I'm going to sign the copy of the book and get that out to you anyway. But my advice is to be a consultant. Stop selling. Try and have conversations with potential customers without even mentioning what you do. I know a friend of mine who's in the real estate business. He said, Colin, I always make a point never ever to mention. In fact, it's a gentleman from Colliers who are doing an event with us soon, my friend George Didoyo, and he never mentions the word real estate when he's talking to people, because what he's talking about is what his services and products do for a customer, not what they are. So I think the best bit of advice is be a consultant,
position yourself that way, and try and take control in a meeting. So when you sit down with a potential customer, don't let them lead the meeting. So start off, this is my second tip, Anna, start off with, Anna, thanks for seeing me today. We spoke each other over the telephone, and you said that, you may want to improve your CRM system. What I like to do today is really sort of show you ways where we can make a big improvement. What I'd like to do is A, ask you about this, B, ask you about that, C, find out a little bit more about this, and D, find out about that. It should take about 45 minutes. Is that okay for you? So you see what I've done there, Anna. Not only have I got once I get a yes from you, I've got your commitment to answer these 4 areas that I want, which could be about a competitor, but you've said, yes, I'm going to answer it. Whereas if you don't do that, when you get halfway through the call and you say, tell me about what you're using right now, they say, oh, just give me a quote and I'll let you know, because there's this client salesperson thing going on. But the key in that thing I did is I told you how long it was going to take, and got your permission. So I know for the next 45 minutes, I've got your undivided attention, I'm in control, and I start the interview. And that's what I call it. I don't call it a sales meeting, I call it an interview, because I'm going to get you to spill the beans on everything. And I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about that? Ask you lots of great questions. All of this is in the book, and really make that an experience. And my final thing is how you judge yourself, whether it's a meeting with a colleague or anybody. And the same way I'm going to do this, ladies and gentlemen, when we finish this webinar, my first thought is what are you all thinking? Now, your response, if somebody to ask you individually, is not going to say, oh, yes, I particularly like the point Colin made about this, and yes, about this, and Anna said this, and it's going to be an emotional response. I enjoyed it. That was a good hour. I enjoyed it, and I picked up a couple of tips. And that's really all we're trying to achieve with every interaction with a client, is that experience. So when you leave that customer, when you leave that meeting, this is your focus. What are they thinking about me right now? Because their expectation for you to do a good job should already be there. What they won't, as I said with the restaurant analogy, is what it's going to be like doing business with you. And if you can focus on that, the likability, the nice call, if you say 45 minutes, finish in 40, which is always good. And have that feel-good factor. A nice handshake or a nice fist bump as we do now, or a nice smile on the Zoom call, and on your way. That's it. I'm exhausted.
I hope you didn't feel like an interview. That's for sure.
Yeah, you did a good job. You did a good job. You interviewed me.
You too. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing some of your secret knowledge, I would say. And as Colin mentioned, the 3 people who ask questions will receive a nice signed book from Colin. I will get in touch with you guys after the webinar. But before that, I would like to thank everyone for being here today, and to remind you that BRCC is still hosting online events for the upcoming period. Of course, we hope to have face-to-face events soon enough. But when the time will come, I will, of course, let you know. And meanwhile, I will also put in the chat box our webpage to our events, where you can learn more about our upcoming events and also register to them. Thank you again, everyone, for being here and for this amazing hour, Colin. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Take care, everybody. See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.